I just wanted to start with saying something. I think it was the last class or a few classes ago. I made this rather esoteric little comment about how the now and eternity are the same thing. So it was interesting as I got three or four people having different comments about that. And I just wanted to remind us all, myself included, that now and eternity are just conceptual toys. Yes, they don't exist. You cannot find now and you cannot find eternity, just like here and infinity. These are just intellectual, conceptual toys for us to play with. What fun to play with these, but they don't exist. Again, you cannot find here, you cannot find infinity. So it's just sort of a disclaimer there when I say these things. I'm not, I'm more amusing myself than anything. And so I found this lovely, actually two short pieces that I wanted to share with you that in some way I feel kind of tie into this. The first one is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, all is riddle, and the key to a riddle is another riddle. There are as many pillows of illusion as flakes in a snowstorm. We wake from one dream into another dream. The toys, to be sure, are various and are graduated in refinement to the quality of the dupe. The intellectual man requires a fine bait. The sots are easily amused. But everybody is drugged with his own frenzy, and the pageant marches at all hours with music and banner and badge. The second one is from Fyodor Dostoevsky, Notes from Underground. Granted, I'm a babbler, a harmless, irksome babbler, as we all are. But what's to be done if the sole and express purpose of every intelligent man is babble? That is, a deliberate pouring from empty into void. And now the babbling of yoga. Good. So, let's begin. I would like to come forward and back a bit. So let's extend the right leg out. So I'm going to come off to an angle so you can see what's happening on the side. So the right leg is just extended out in a relaxed way. And then we're going to take this left leg, and if you can bend it in, and just simply be aware that this alignment between the ankle and the knee, this just happens to fit my skeleton. So if this ankle needs to flare out a little bit or the leg needs to open a little bit, kind of just work with your skeleton. Don't force your body, your skeleton into the variation of my skeleton. This shape is always just a suggestion. So make that work for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to come forward for a bit, and then we're going to come back. And when we come back, what I'm going to suggest is either take the small bolster and put it behind you. If you don't have the small bolster, a couple of pillows back here just to give you some support. Or you could take the large bolster and do it. And same thing, you could replicate this with pillows. So I just want to have some support, especially for this knee and the quadricep when we come into the back position. So right leg is out, left knee is bent back to a certain extent. You can open it up if it's too tight. Although coming forward like this, it's not exerting a tremendous amount of pressure on the knee. That'll happen when we go back. So that's why I'm suggesting supporting the torso. And then just a nice relaxed forward bend. Relax the weight of the head, the shoulders, as always. Find some support either on your hands, your forearms, using the bolstering. So just to ease into this. And this is what we call a forward saddle, and it's a bit something we don't do all the time. So these little places that are tugging and resisting, you slow down enough so you can feel that. And we're just kind of weaving the pressure into your particular skeletal variation, where your muscles might be a bit restricted, and just in general, this sort of tightness and achiness. So that's the pose, is just to really bring that up a bit and be with it and explore it. And one of the things that I would like to invite you to explore is feeling your body in a way that you can acknowledge that the tension that is being held can have just an almost an unlimited variety of sources. So the human body is not linear at its deepest and at its grossest, really. It's just not a linear organism that we have. There's just too much going on. So what I mean by that is give yourself the freedom to allow whatever wants to come into your awareness, to let it come in. That tension, anxiety, this sort of vague discomfort, this can be from events or an event that happened many, many years ago. This can be from a combination of energies that have been in play recently, that one triggers another, and these energies have a way of weaving into your system, and we become very used to and habituated to waiting until there's a specific physical manifestation. And then we're like, oh, the body's trying to talk to me. Maybe I better pay attention. But we have such a great capacity to relax into this sort of universal sense of the body, where the anxieties and the tensions and the blockages and just the flow of the body is this very complex energy pattern or patterns. And we want to just be able to explore that. And then whatever arises, this is available to you, available to explore, to just to be with, to respect, to not judge. So let's unroll out of this very, very slowly. Try not to have your body come up abruptly. Just really feeling this unrolling and these little points of release along the way. And now we'll be a little bit more aware of the especially the knee. Quadricep, it will just more tighten, but this knee joint is extremely complex. So what I did here is I put two pillows behind me. You could, again, use the big bolster or the small bolster. You can open this a little bit. You can flare out that foot so the ankle releases. And then just come first to the forearms. And if this quadricep is tight, the knee's going to want to come up. That's perfectly fine. Certainly don't force it down. Just let it come up. And as this relaxes, it'll maybe settle back down. And we just want to relax the entire body over one of those suggested props. Yeah. And now if you do have some knee injury or you're just feeling completely unsafe to stress the knee this much, I completely understand. What you can do is you can then bring it around front, put the sole of that left foot on the inside, but for the backward bend there, put the pillows under the lower back, pillow or pillows, whatever your lower back can sustain. So you're still getting the backward bend of the half saddle, but we're bending the knee at a much milder place. So you can just modify it this way. Yeah. But if you can bend the knee even just a bit, even if the knee is way open like this, it's still moving towards and deeper into the hip, the quadricep, and the knee bending. So just modify it just according to what your how safe your body feels and what your edge will tolerate, basically. Allowing yourself to just continue to slowly relax. So if you find yourself applying effort, you want to reevaluate that and back away from that, even though this practice can be uncomfortable. It's meant to be uncomfortable. We try to hold that discomfort with a certain sense of effortlessness, so we can allow the discomfort to express what it wants to express. So we're not in a pushing away or denying or fixing mode with our discomfort. We're in an accepting, receptive, respectful mode with our discomfort. And as I said earlier, that we're working with this very, these complex energy patterns. If we wanted to look at it in a very broad way, the muscle tissue is mostly for strength and movement. The ligamental tissue, fascia, the ligaments, is mostly for structure and holding the stresses of the body. And both of these tissues, all of these tissues are sprinkled with pain receptors. So we're not interested in this practice in strength or necessarily movement. We're interested in these ligamental, these fascial tissues that are embedded within the muscle, that are encapsulating the muscle and the organs, and how that level of tension is just, it can be in a holding or a habitual pattern. So this is, again, why we look to the discomfort as a certain intelligence. It's there, these pain receptors that are throughout, all of these tissues are really there to warn us, but also to inform us. So if we can stay below the threshold where they're warning us, where they feel safe and compatible with these long holds, good, then it can start to inform us. And so I think the best way to get out of this is to just start to roll over to the right a bit. So if you can roll to the right, you should reach a tipping point where you can release this left leg and just straighten it out. Yeah, so we'll just let this left leg release. Obviously, if you have the leg up front and you have the supports under the lumbar, you can straighten that leg out, put the feet on the floor, elevate the hips, remove that from the lower back. We'll just stay here for a moment with both legs out here. And then before we do the other side, let's just roll up. So come on up and place the soles of the feet together. We'll just come into a nice simple butterfly just to counterpose that little backward bend that we did. So soles of the feet together, and just as passive upper body torso weight as possible, and almost as if you're just melting into these strands of tightness and restriction. One of the things to be mindful of as you're relaxing is to not be forceful with the breath. So oftentimes when we're evoking discomfort in the body, the breath will start to increase. And sometimes through the breath increasing, we can sort of match that, and the breath becomes a little quickened or forceful even. So as we relax, we want to not only allow the breath to calm down, but to have this imagery that we can use the breath to start to breathe emptiness into what we're feeling. So if something feels tight, if something feels off, if something feels emotionally just a vague emotional anxiety, something feels in the mind a little bit repetitive or obsessive, it doesn't matter, body, heart, mind, you can allow the breath to breathe emptiness into it. And that's really the same thing that I've also been saying of allow these qualities to be absorbed into the breath. So on the inhalation, you can breathe emptiness into whatever quality is being evoked. And on the exhalation, you can let that quality then be absorbed into the breath. Okay, I think that's good. We were just really using this for a transition from that backward bend. So let's do the other side, please. We'll do the forward half saddle first. So we'll extend this left leg out. And if you already know about what's going on with your knee and you don't want to bend it, just put it on the inside here and then put, small bolster works if you have it, or pillow or something just across. If you're able to bend it back, that would be good. So we'll bend it back. And again, no need to mimic this alignment from my ankle to my knee. Let this right leg breathe as much as possible. And then we're going to set something up behind us. So you're going to use something to come into the backward bend. I used some pillows last time. If you have a big bolster, that works well. Whoops. And then again, this is, for some of us, it's a bit not only awkward, but a little unfamiliar. So really take your time, really try to soften the lower back coming down. We don't want to lengthen or activate the lower back muscles. We want to try to unengage them as much as possible. So we're really sinking into this, this entire back line. Relax the head down and just sink in. Allow yourself to breathe emptiness into any sensation of discomfort, any sensation of anxiety. And allow any anxiety, any discomfort to be absorbed into the breath.
Good. So once again, let us come up very carefully here. And just really feeling anywhere these pain receptors may be trying to warn us and inform us, is what they do. And then if you're able to keep the knee in this position, lovely. I put the small bolster behind, so it's just up the length of the spine. You could use the large one or a collection of blankets and pillows. And then coming, just really making sure you're good here. This is not so intense for the lower back, at least not for me, but the knee and the quadricep, as you can see, my knee's coming up, tight quadricep. So just be patient with that, let that happen. And when you bring the body down, just make an assessment whether you need more support to stay here. Yeah, so it's always your choice. I'm just sort of giving this kind of general template and then just fitting your body into it where you will. Most important with these poses is just to be able to relax in them for a relatively long period of time. This is how the ligamental tissues respond. They need to be, because of the tightness of them, the structure and the stress, they need this compression. Whereas the muscles thrive more on the quicker movement of stretching and elongating and then coming back in, because they're more for movement and strength. So we want to be in a position where we're applying, either through body weight or a series of bolstering, to apply this stress, this pressure into these ligamental tissues over time. A minimum really of 3 minutes, because there's a barrier where it needs to relax. It needs to feel safe. And at this fascial barrier, then it starts to make whatever changes, starts to stimulate the production of fluids, this sort of thing. So the point of my story here is we want to be in a place where we can stay over time and just relax into it. So I found it interesting what Emerson was suggesting, that the key to a riddle is another riddle. So in some ways, yoga itself is a riddle. Yoga, from the Sanskrit, meaning no separation. But the senses that we all possess are set up to create separation. We need separation to function. So if I'm suggesting that this idea that now and eternity are the same thing, and I'm further saying that these are just conceptual toys, that they don't really exist. So instead of then coming up with another riddle to examine that riddle, what yoga suggests is investigate directly. If I cannot indeed find eternity, I cannot indeed find now, then what is there? What is the nature of direct experience and direct reality. So the yoga is suggesting to come to a place, an inner place, because the senses are too stimulating, too amusing, too interesting. So we draw the sensory stimulation inward. We begin to relax all our engagement with the conceptual toys, because we realize that's all they are. They come and they go. And then we sit in this presence. We sit with this awareness. So all of this we're aware of. So we sit with this quietly in a state of calm equanimity. And then we just allow all of the riddles to just bubble to the surface, and we just sit in this depth of presence. So there are no more riddles, there are no more conceptual toys. It's just the presence of our consciousness as ourself. Okay, so let's start to think about coming out of this as well. So again, if you do have the knee bent, I'm suggesting to roll over to the left, and at some point you'll be able to release that. You may have to roll a lot, but eventually just release that right leg. And now let's just lie here and take a bit of a rest. And again, if you have the bolstering under the lower back, obviously time to remove it, straighten out the leg, and we will come into Shavasana. And really, it's a very, very interesting inquiry that I'm presenting here. It's really at the foundation of my current inquiries, because once we do start to relax that addictive behavior with our thinking and all of these conceptual frameworks that we're so enamored with, and we do start to cultivate this capacity to sit with just presence, just quietness, stillness. The question then arises, well, what's next? This is, rather boring at some point, just to sit with, absolute peace. But I think it's very important to really understand that whether we call this awakening or enlightenment or a stage on our spiritual path, life itself, the intelligence of life, is a process. We never get to a point where it's over, where we're just a blank slate, where we're just relaxing into the void. So the beautiful thing about this inquiry, this self-inquiry, this bringing the energy inward and seeing the discernment between the essence of ourself, our true nature, at the level of this presence and awareness. So the awakening of that, out of the dream, you might say, the discernment between that and all of the, just the craziness of the thinking and the thoughts and is that the subtlety of how life guides us is unique to our own needs. So this is what we trust. We just trust that there is a process that is built into being human. And we just go with that. We just trust that. So at some point, the shifts that we make, the insights that we make become very, very subtle. And it's no longer even spiritual. It's no longer having to put time aside to light the incense and sit quietly and do formal yoga. At some point, it's just life. Yes, this is a stage where, even the most mundane thing, if we look carefully and we slow down and we breathe and we're present, there's a lesson. It's very beautiful. Very beautiful to be alive at this level, so we're not fighting life and we're not trying to stay away from what we think is bad, move towards what is good, that we just accept what life presents to us and then we learn. Okay, good. So you're lying on your back. You can stay lying on your back, and from lying on your back, just allow your right arm to relax out, just right from the shoulder. Yep, so the arm is just perpendicular to the body, the right arm. I think good to have palm facing up. You may want to reach around and get a pillow or a little blanket to put your head on. And then from here, bend the left knee and put the left foot flat on the floor. Just use this for some support and roll over onto this right shoulder. So we're just rolling onto the shoulder, and we want to then let the left hip come as close to the floor as possible, and this left shoulder to come as close to the floor as possible. So take that left arm and just put it out in front of you so it can relax. And then you want to slide something under your head, I would imagine. That's nice to have a little pillow there. But most of the pressure, the weight of the upper body is now compressing into this right shoulder. So we're not lying on the side here. We're not holding this left shoulder up. Let that left shoulder come as far down as it can without forcing it. And then if you want to bend that left knee on the floor, just kind of let the hips be relaxed, but find a place where you definitely feel it. This weight is just seeping into this right shoulder. And at some point in this journey, it's very good to know that reality is not particle based, it's intelligence based. So this intelligence, this life, call it what you will, is unique to you. So whatever your individual blueprint is, this intelligence is unique to you. So we all move at our own pace. And what I mean by particle-based is that this growth, this evolution, this awakening is not about things. It's not about objective experiences, whether they're physical things or they're more concepts or more belief systems. It's really about surrendering to this intelligence, surrendering to life, and becoming very sensitive to the lessons that are presented. And it's an ongoing process. It doesn't stop. So let's just roll onto your back. You can use a little pressure to push off from that right hand, and we'll just roll onto your back. You may want to take your little pillow with you. And let's just lay here for a bit and just feel any reverberations from this right shoulder before we do the other side. Good. So if you think you're ready, no rush at all, you can let this left arm extend out again, approximately perpendicular to the body, and then bend that right leg, put the right foot on the floor. And it's just a rolling over onto this left shoulder. I'm bringing my little pillow with me, trying to get the right hip to relax down, trying to put the right hand above that left arm. So it's good just to relax it there, but if you need to withdraw a little bit during the pose, you can just press up and come out of it, or adjust this right arm in a little bit. But ultimately, we want this right shoulder as far down as possible, just to relax. So it's this upper torso, as you probably know here, putting all this compression into this left shoulder. Yeah, don't let the neck be too uncomfortable. So again, have a little blanket or pillow there. And as you are relaxing and just sinking in and making contact with your body, be aware that essentially what we're doing here is that you're holding space for yourself. You're holding space for your own breathing, for your sensations, for your internal energy. And just so you can be aware, just so you can notice all of this this mystery and this complexity that is your organism and your internal sense of being. This is really the primary focus of yoga. Everything else is secondary. And very, very valuable when we spend the majority of our time projecting these senses outward, receiving stimulation back in. So to take this time to hold space for yourself, for your inner self, and just examine and investigate. And also to check in, to see where you are with these lessons that life is presenting to you. What is your capacity for self-inquiry? Where do you feel blocked? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Where are you able to surrender and let go and just allow yourself to be, without all of these concepts, without all of the dominance of the intellect, and just feel into yourself, feel into life, feel into the lessons. So at some point, and this is a very interesting place, and this is something that yin yogis that we're really cultivating, you might even say we're training for this, is to allow the discomfort to make us more alert, not miserable. Most people equate discomfort with misery. The yin yogi equates discomfort with alertness, with sensitivity, with subtlety. So holding space to become intimate with what you're feeling without judging it comfortable or uncomfortable, but just the purity and the wisdom of the sensation.
Good. So let's roll off of the shoulder and just roll onto your back, and let's take another rest here. And when I suggest, cultivating, holding space for yourself, this does not just mean to close your eyes and kind of drift away. Of course, nothing wrong with closing your eyes and drifting away. I'm a big fan of drifting away. What I'm talking about, and from our yogic perspective, is to take that quite literally, to cultivate, to actually discover this spaciousness that you are. And again, the discernment is very important, because then the thoughts and the conceptual toys and the opinions and the belief systems and the judgments, these all become clutter. These are not spacious. These are taking up space. So when we start to hold space for ourselves, it's a literal spaciousness that is as a presence. We are still there. We don't need the objective experiences. We don't need all of the clutter to be who we are, because we are this spaciousness. So when we hold this space, then we start to discern. Then we start to get some distance from, relax back into this spaciousness, and then get a different perspective on all of this clutter, all of these preoccupations, these worries, these fears, these intellectual chess matches that the mind plays. And just relax, just be the space, because the clutter is going to be there. It's going to come and it's going to go. And the less attached to it we can be, the more peaceful we can be. Because more and more than this space that we're cultivating and holding for ourselves, we actually see that's our true nature. The clutter comes and goes. The stories about stories, the riddles, all of the concepts, they come and they go. I am what does not change. Okay, so I'm going to give you a choice of backward bends. And I was thinking about this when I was doing it today, that it's really, really important to honestly discern what your back needs. And the reason I'm saying this is because this first one that I'm going to show, at least for me, is borderline restorative. It's almost restorative. Restorative being almost no discomfort, but really allowing the body, and specifically this lower back, to go into relaxation, and seeing that the relaxation is in itself a healing modality. And so there are times when your body just needs that. So that's what this first one is going to be. The second one, not so much. The second one is definitely yin. So the first one would be to make a roll and then make a pad, unless you have the small bolster. If you have the small bolster, you can put the small bolster over the end of the roll like this. Yeah. But I'm assuming not everyone has that. So the alternative would be to then approximate the shape and the size of that small bolster. It works just as well. And we're going to put one end over it. Yeah. So this is the first choice. This, for me, for some people, not for everybody, will be somewhat restorative. And I'm putting a little something for my head down there as well. And we simply sit on the floor in front of it and snug the lower back into it, relax the legs out, and support the upper body. Yeah, so depending on how you roll this and how you are feeling in this lumbar area, like I said, this may be very yin and there's a lot of compression from here. That's fine.
You can control and modulate the compression by the size of the roll. Make sure the buttocks is on the floor. So that's choice number one. Choice number two, however, would be a little more intense, and we're going to follow up with the first one we did with bending the knees back. So for this, you can take either the small bolster or the large bolster or some pillows just to support the whole torso. And so as we did the half saddle, we'll now do the full saddle. So that would be sitting between the heels, bending the knees back. Yes, for some of us, not so good. For some of us, good. And then having some support. And it really doesn't matter if you use a small bolster, some pillows. You could even bring it up on an angle. The more you elevate the torso up, the less compression here. So as I now come back into it, now my knees, my quadriceps, my hips are all responding. So find that height again that you can, really hold space for yourself. One more thing with this, what I also did is I did half the time in this deeper pose and enjoyed the benefits of this. Then I came out of it at a certain point and I went into that second one I showed, or the first one I showed you, that I'm calling more restorative. So I went to a relatively intense place in the full saddle, and then I came out of it and went to this relatively less intense place with the roll and the pad over it. So I'll tell you when it's about halfway, you can either stay where you're at, and you could even reverse that if you're in the restorative and you want to try the deeper version, you could do that as well. But let's settle into whatever one you're doing, and we'll see what happens. And obviously, we're always interested in exploring the sensation of the pain. Now also be interested in exploring your relationship to the pain. So if you find that you have an automatic response to the pain, see if you can relax that and see if you can just be interested in what your relationship to the pain is. And certainly at a physical level, but also at an emotional level and a psychological level. Because most of our responses are very programmed. Yes, they're part of our patterns. So through yoga, we begin to understand that whatever the pattern is, we think it's a mental pattern or an emotional pattern or a physical pattern. Deep down at a cellular level, it's a complex energy pattern. So we don't have to follow that habitual response. We don't have to react. We can explore the nature of the sensation. And then, as important, we explore our relationship to these sensations. So if you feel like you're in a good and an interesting place at this point, and you want to stay right where you are, feel free to do that. If you would like to explore and change it, if you're in the more intense position, you want to go to the less intense, or you're in the less intense and you want to explore going deeper, this would be a good time to make that shift. Or the other option is to come out and take a brief rest, especially if you're bending the knees back, to just let the knees open and breathe and relax. And then after a minute or two, go back into the pose. So always really listening to the subtlety and the sensitivity and the feedback of your body. And often I will it suggests that we, really cultivate how to explore ourselves vibrationally. So we don't want to just let that invitation, turn into a conceptual toy. So the way we explore this, first of all, we realize that whatever we are feeling, at whichever layer body we're exploring, whatever we're feeling, it's not solid and it's not stuck. It's vibrating. So whatever we're exploring, whatever the sensation is, it is always between these two forces. And the foundation of vibration is a contraction and an expansion. So what we're really exploring is that if we stay in the contraction, we go too deep into the contraction, this will cause us harm. This will cause us physical discomfort, disease. If we go too far to the expansion of the vibrational forces, at some point we become disoriented, even to go a bit crazy, if you will. So the way that we're exploring is between these two forces. Nothing is solid, nothing is stuck. So to quiet down the noise of the whole system and start to feel where your individual rhythm is, a healthy contraction, and that contraction naturally releasing into an expansion, that expansion expanding, and then naturally folding back into a contraction. And one of the best ways to start to explore this, obviously, is through our breathing. So we start to take a nice, slow, deep inhale. We certainly can't or wouldn't want to keep inhaling. There's a point where that contraction is like, okay, it's time to go to the other end of the vibration and exhale. And then we exhale and we exhale and we explore that expansive, that emptiness of the exhale, but we don't want to keep, or can we not keep exhaling, and it just naturally folds back into the inhale. So this is happening in every cell of your body, every thought in your mind, every emotion in your heart. So exploring yourself vibrationally is a beautiful way to start to allow this inquiry just to go deeper, go into the cells, go into the tissues, go into all of this anxiety and openness. Good. So let's start to come out of this. If you still have the knees bent back, I advise not to try to come up and forward. This can be rather unsafe for the lower back. So just as we were in the half position, if you can just roll over to one side and just release one of the legs out. Yes, that would be good to do first. And then you can roll to the other side and release the other leg, nice and slow. We've been here for a while. If you're over that lower roll with the legs out, just put the feet on the floor. And from here, you can put the pelvis up on that support, or you can just roll off of it. But either way, just take your time, and let's take a significant rest here, since I know that's these backward bends can be sometimes rather daunting. Yeah, and if you would like to, you can stay on your side or come to your side and curl up into a nice fetal position to get a little backward bend. You could go into child's pose to get a little bit of a forward bend. So whatever your body needs at this point, but we'll take a rest here. Where this imagery of conceptual toys came from is very interesting. Someone offered me a Rubik's Cube. He said, "Do you want a Rubik's Cube?" Maybe they thought I needed one. And just the thought, so I just started thinking about even just putting my hands and starting the process of a Rubik's Cube, and it makes me a little seasick, it makes me a bit queasy. So I thought, wow, that's so interesting. That's like a conceptual toy. I don't have the thing in front of me, but just thinking about it evokes these interesting sensations in my body, and not positive ones. So I declined the Rubik's Cube. And I also think it's such an interesting exploration, just in terms of a realization. This is a foundational a foundational teaching of yoga, and yoga, and specifically yoga at the level of Advaita Vedanta, specifically yoga at the level of non-dualism, that there's nothing to figure out. That the moment you start to move into having to figure out whatever it is, your life, a yoga pose, a relationship, a situation, a feeling, the moment you move towards figuring it out, you are adding to the complexity. And this is what I was saying a few classes back, is that the simplicity is that there's only two things that exist, and one of them doesn't exist. There's awareness and appearance. So what yoga is saying is just allow the appearances to be as they are, and allow your rest, and allow your identity, allow your sense of self to be from this awareness, from this consciousness. But this is the beauty of the exploration, is that at some point we get to see that we are complicating, that we are trying to find the key to the riddle with another riddle. So how we relax and how we find that place in ourself that is quiet, that is beyond the noise of the system, the mind, the heart, the body, where it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's still, it's silent, and we just sit there and see that we're still there, that our presence is ever present. Our presence is universal. It is our presence. We are present with our presence. So stay, if you're not lying on your back, please come to lying on your back. And I would like to suggest this, this particular a twist, this reclining twist. So lying on your back, if you could put both feet flat on the floor and just allow at first the left leg just to fall back to the floor. Yep. So this left leg is falling to the floor. And then take the right leg and just put the foot up in the air. So it's maybe like over your face, maybe not that high if you can, but just straighten that right leg so you can see the foot. Yeah. And then we're going to try to keep the right shoulder on the floor and let now this right leg drift over to the left. So obviously this is intensifying this simple reclining twist by the weight of this leg. So I'm trying to, if I have my left arm out perpendicular, I'm letting that right foot come over that left hand. I may not go there, but I'm just trying to illustrate the direction. And then if you can, wherever it settles, just let the weight of that entire leg draw you into the lower back. And then if it starts to drift, eventually it'll start to drift down. That's perfectly fine. Don't necessarily hold it. Let it drift where it wants to drift. It doesn't matter. It may be a strand in the lower back that needs to go lower. Do try to keep that right shoulder grounded if you can. So don't roll over to the left. And we'll just hold this leg out for a while. If this becomes too fatiguing muscularly for the lower back, you can just bend that right leg and do a simpler reclining twist at any time you'd like. But if you can hold that leg out for a bit, it's nice, especially if you don't do this to apply that extra weight to the twist. So not solid, not permanent, not stuck. Whatever you're feeling is between these two forces. So your willingness to breathe, your willingness to relax, your willingness to also to very mindfully sit on the edge of not knowing. Don't let the mind keep churning and tell you what is and isn't, but just relax into not knowing. Feel this vibrational space between these two forces, just as intelligence, just as communication, as information. We don't have to superimpose a story on anything. And again, don't hold that leg where you think it's supposed to be, but feel the movement and the quality of the lower back. So if it wants to shift a little bit, you're simply using the weight of the leg to explore any resistance wherever you're feeling that resistance. So be open to exploring and also be intuitive with it. Good. So if you still have the right leg out anywhere, you can just bend it now, bring it back towards the left leg, roll back onto your back, straighten both legs. And we'll just lay here for a bit with the legs out before we do the other side of this. Good. So we'll bring both knees to the floor, not the knees to the floor, excuse me, both feet flat to the floor, bend the knees. And we'll just let that right leg now go over to the right. So it's resting on the floor. Try to keep the left shoulder on the floor where it is. And then we'll extend that left leg up. So you're looking at the foot, straight leg. And then again, just according to your muscles and your skeleton, we'll let this leg come over towards that right hand. And then wherever it's going to be, you are going to allow it to kind of feel its way into all of that pulling and tugging and resistance of the lower back primarily. You may be feeling it other places, but obviously this twist is evoking lumbar resistance. And we'll just do this for the same amount of time. And I do believe that it is often valuable to actually, start to listen to your thoughts as noise. So what this allows us to do, it allows us to then find that place where we can sink into a more internally quiet place, start to identify the thoughts as noise, and then just not have to follow the impulses of them. So not that we're trying to stop the thinking, but it's almost a subtle transformation, that there's so much coming and going and coming and going, and the thoughts have this, very intelligent capacity to ensnare us and entangle us, and then we are, compelled to follow the impulses of the thoughts. This is the sort of the average, waking state. So in yoga, what we're attempting to do is identify that they are simply noise at some level, and to relax from that noise, and then not follow the impulse, not get entangled, and see that there is a very natural coming and going that we don't have to control, we don't have to alter, but we can certainly rest from. And this is a powerful thing when we can start to hold this place within us where we're not having to follow the impulses of the thoughts. Good. So if you still have that leg up and straight, you can bend it, bring both legs back together, and then let's roll onto your back. And you can rest on your back. I'm also going to suggest a child's pose here. So either one. So just child's pose is really nice to really feel it as just a very mild forward bend. So after backward bend, twist, twist, this mild forward bend before we go into a deeper forward bend. And again, this doesn't have to be static. Once you've relaxed into your child's pose, if you're doing that, you can just bring the hips over the one heel, bring the hips over the other heel, just a nice slow passive motion. It's just so nice to feel the hip and the lumbar connection, not to mention the sacrum and the pelvis. Okay, so come on up if you're ready. And I'm going to suggest the big bolster for this works well. If you don't have the big bolster, I've folded up a towel and I've rolled up a blanket. So what I'm going to ask you to do is put this bolster under the knees, but don't bring the soles of the feet together. We're going to keep them at the width of the bolster. And if you don't have the bolster, this works just as well. You just want to get some height to bring the femurs out of the hips a bit. Well, not all the way out. You still want to walk after class, so just relax them up and out. But what I'm suggesting is to keep the feet open, to not bring them in. So this is what it would look like with the blanket, or you could use the big bolster. And just a forward bend here. So this is a forward bend, obviously to alleviate the tension from the back of the legs and the hips by elevating the femurs out of the hip sockets and then just relaxing into the lower back. So just find a nice place. Try to relax the head down. And any resistance in this lumbar area, and by resistance, I mean, various sensations. Just again, breathe emptiness. The inhalation, we breathe emptiness. The exhalation, we let any of those sensations be absorbed into the breath. So I mentioned earlier this this willingness to just sit with a sense of not knowing, with I don't know. And over time, I've come to cultivate this space, but also really respect it for its power to transform and to heal. Because one of the things that I think essentially can block our healing is a compulsive need to figure everything out, a compulsive need to know. And oftentimes this can lead to a need for perfection. And, unfortunately, this is something we've all been, trained. Our culture just trains us to figure everything out. And this need to know can become compulsive. So if we are in a study, if we are wanting to open up a healing process for ourselves, it can be very valuable to just learn how to cultivate this space authentically, that I do not know. And this is very personal. This is a sense of intimacy, because it can bring up many feelings, many feelings of fear, of disorientation. And then the intellect wants to fix that. It wants to go right back to I know, we can fix this. So to be able to sit with I do not know and allow the depth of feelings to emerge, and sit with those with I do not know, experience them, let them simply be. And ultimately, they will transform into your teachers. Good. So let's come on up from here. And as you sit up, whatever you have under your knees, you can just slide it out from under. And then that angle that the legs are at, straighten your legs there. So this is the angle will come forward. Of course, this is approximate. If your hips want a little wider or a little closer together, feel free. And then come forward again. So now notice the difference here when that the piriformis starts to tighten, the hips tighten, the hamstrings tighten. So this relationship to this tightening and the lumbar area. So these two work together. If we really want to release our lumbar area, we must release the hips and the hamstrings. We really want the hamstrings and the hips to be open, we must release the lower back. So this is a nice way to kind of feel directly that interplay. And, just so I'm very clear, the need to know is a lovely thing. I'm not denigrating that. Being able to fix something when something needs fixing, being able to know something when it's valuable is very important. But again, this is part of the pulsation of two forces. If we genuinely want to explore our healing, then that is a process that is not linear, that doesn't need the support of the intellect. It needs the support of the intuitive, feminine, receptive yin right brain. So how to find this balance for yourself, this is the meditation. Good. So let's come on up from here. And my suggestion is to put that bolstering back under the legs at the same width and keep the legs open and just go right back into it. You don't really need me to describe it because you will feel it. Do again, make sure that the lower back is rounded, as muscularly unengaged as possible, that the head and shoulders are relaxed as possible. I think also, what I was saying about continuing to learn about the distinction between fixing and healing, where it really interweaves with our yoga is making this very important distinction about the actual feelings and the direct experience of being embodied and our ideas about the body. So the embodiment is obviously direct, our direct current experience and our ability to listen to that and to process that and to learn from that. And often with our ideas about our body, they're heavily influenced. I mean, this is amazing to watch, that we can be just incredibly influenced by a variety of external forces when it may or may not be appropriate for our body. So to be able to make this discernment between being in the body itself directly, being embodied, and your ideas about your body is extremely valuable. So I just have to repeat this last part of what I read earlier, that Mr. Dostoevsky talks about our babble, that our babble is a deliberate pouring from empty into void. Good. So let's come on up from here. And before we lie down, if indeed you're going to lie down, let's just, as you sit up and relax your spine, just interlock your fingers behind your back. And if you could just straighten your elbows, if they'll straighten a bit, and then just start to bring the arms up. So even if you can't interlock your fingers, you can still just bring your arms up a bit, try to bring the hands together, just to sort of open this, this shoulder, since we did that shoulder press, and And just so nice to, really what we're also doing is encouraging not only the shoulder girdle to open, but to keep the placement of the shoulders over the hips. So you want to notice this in your posture, that if your shoulders are starting to come a little bit forward, this is not necessary. We want to walk with balance and grace and alignment. And so we want the shoulders over the hips and the hips over the heels. And then you can just let your head sway a little bit or bob around or lean into any sensation in the neck. Good. So you can relax the arms and you can lie down and come into a final Shavasana if you would like. If you feel you need to keep moving on in postures, please do. Or if you would like to sit up with me for a few moments, we will do that. In pleasure and in pain, thou art serene. In hope and in despair, thou art serene. In life and in death, thou art serene. And namaste. Okay.